My name is Ava, and this is the story of my friend Margaret. If you've ever had someone in your life so beautiful, so radiant and selfless, that even in their absence, their presence lingers in every corner of your memory, then you'll understand the pain I carry every time I say her name. Margaret, she wasn't just my friend, she was my sister by soul. We grew up in the same small apartment complex in Ohio. Neighbors from birth, I knew her laugh, her tears, her quiet strength. She was the kind of person who gave even when she had nothing. The kind of person who carried other people's burdens in her small frame, never complaining. But life was relentless with Margaret. She was born into poverty, real poverty. The kind that gnawed at your pride and whispered to you every day that you were invisible. Her father, Mr. Jonathan Fields, was a factory technician who developed a chronic heart condition from years of toxic exposure to industrial fumes. Her mother died of cervical cancer when Margaret was just 11. By 14, Margaret was raising her younger siblings while working two part-time jobs and trying to finish high school. She was brilliant. She wanted to study nutrition and become a wellness coach. Her dream was to open a health cafe one day, a cozy place that served plant-based meals to inner-city families who couldn't afford expensive organic foods. But dreams are expensive, and Margaret was broke. She applied for scholarships, took out small student loans, worked nights at a diner, and still managed to graduate community college. But with her father's declining health and the pandemic laying waste to every corner of the economy, she began sinking into debt. By 25, Margaret was over $40,000 in student loan debt, plus another $6,000 in credit card bills from rent, food, and covering her father's medication. Then came the real blow. Her father needed heart valve replacement surgery, $65,000 after insurance, and it was urgent. I still remember the call. Her voice was shaking. Ava, she said, I need to do something. Anything. I can't let my dad die because we're poor. That was the first time she mentioned surrogacy. I was shocked. I knew about surrogacy. Of course, but for us, it was something distant. Something you saw in movies or read about in celebrity gossip columns. It wasn't something your best friend did because she couldn't afford to bury her father. She had been approached by a private agency that worked with affluent couples seeking gestational surrogates. They offered $35,000 upfront and a $15,000 bonus after birth. All medical expenses would be covered. The couple in question lived in Chicago and had been trying to conceive for 10 years. They had failed IVF attempts and were emotionally drained. The agency made it sound simple, almost beautiful. But Margaret wasn't doing this for beauty. She was doing this because her father was dying, and she had exhausted every other option. The gestational surrogacy contract she signed was thick, pages and pages of legalese. I helped her read it. Some key clauses jumped out. She would have no legal or emotional claim to the child. The intended parents would cover her housing, medical bills, and a modest food stipend. Post-delivery contact was strictly forbidden unless initiated by the couple. If complications occurred, Margaret bore zero liability, but also zero entitlement to additional support unless previously agreed. She was moved to a condo near the fertility clinic, where she'd be monitored through her pregnancy. The IVF transfer was successful. Margaret was pregnant, and the couple, they were delighted. But distant, they never visited. They sent occasional messages through the agency, usually with instructions about diet, supplements, or delivery preferences. But Margaret, she blossomed. She talked to the baby daily, sang to her, prayed over her. 9 months later, she gave birth vaginally to a healthy baby girl. 8 pounds 6 ounces, pink cheeks, dark hair. She never got to hold her. The baby was whisked away per the agreement. The couple was waiting at the hospital. They took the child, signed the remaining payment, and left. Margaret was discharged 2 days later with $50,000 in her account and a body that still ached in places no one talked about. But she was smiling. She paid for her father's surgery the next week. The operation was successful. He slowly started walking again without oxygen support. Margaret used the rest to clear some of her debt and, finally, open her dream cafe, a cozy corner near the university campus. Whole and hearty, a place that served nutritious, affordable meals. For the first time in her life, Margaret was breathing. But fate had a sick sense of humor. 6 months after opening, inflation skyrocketed. Supply prices doubled. Then came the health inspection that shut her down for a plumbing violation, something her landlord had delayed fixing. Her savings vanished, her credit maxed out. She was sued for breach of lease. And before she could pivot, her father had a mild stroke. Hospital bills returned like old ghosts. Within a year, Margaret was back to zero. And then the couple reached out again. This time, they wanted a boy. They had frozen male embryos from the same donor cycle. They offered $60,000 total, with higher allowances, a better apartment, and a higher food stipend. Margaret was hesitant. She had promised herself never again. But debt is a cruel landlord. I begged her to reconsider. I told her we'd figure something out. Maybe a GoFundMe, maybe a loan. But Margaret was proud, too proud to beg the world for help again. She signed. The process began: medical evaluations, hormonal therapy, another embryo transfer. It worked again. Pregnancy confirmed. Margaret moved into a luxury apartment near a hospital in Chicago. The intended parents still kept their distance. This time, they specified that she should deliver via cesarean section, citing a recommendation from their private obgyn. Margaret was wary. Her previous birth had gone smoothly. But the contract gave the parents significant influence over medical decisions. Their doctor insisted the baby was large and CS would be safer for the child. Margaret felt like she had no voice. Her body wasn't hers. 8 months in, she was tired. Depressed, isolated. She confided in me more often. She missed being herself. She missed her cafe. Her father was struggling again. She wanted this to be over. And then the delivery. The C-section was scheduled for 38 weeks. The baby boy was delivered safely. 8 pounds 11 ounces, crying healthy. But Margaret, something went wrong. She had trouble waking up from anesthesia. Her incision site began showing signs of infection within 48 hours. She had a fever. The nurses noted drainage and tenderness. They administered basic antibiotics, but the infection spread. The couple, meanwhile, left with their son 3 days after birth. They left a gift basket, a thank you card. The agency sent the final payment, and that was it. Margaret's condition worsened. She developed sepsis, a life-threatening infection that begins in the blood. Her kidneys were failing. She couldn't keep food down. She was hallucinating. Her hospital bill was now her responsibility. The agency said they had fulfilled their terms. And she was alone. That's when she called me. I hadn't seen her in months. She looked frail on the video call. Her eyes were sunken, her voice a whisper. Ava, I think I'm dying. I caught the next flight, but I was too late. I arrived 34 minutes after she passed. The nurse said she spent her final hour crying in silence, asking if the couple would ever bring the boy to see her, asking if I was coming. I sat by her empty hospital bed and held her scarf. I screamed into it until my voice cracked. Margaret had died. With her dreams. With her cafe. With her debt. With nothing but scars and forgotten contracts. So when people say, oh, surrogacy is a gift, I want to scream. It can be. But for Margaret, it was a transaction, a legally bound sacrifice where the money never matched the cost, where dignity came second to delivery, where a woman gave everything and still lost everything. My name is Ava, and this is the story of my friend Margaret. And if her story teaches you anything, let it be this. Don't ever let a woman's body be borrowed and then discarded like it was nothing. She was not nothing. She was everything. But the story didn't end there, not really. You see, 2 days after the funeral, small, quiet, barely a dozen people, I received a package from the hospital chaplain. Inside it was Margaret's tablet, wrapped in a worn scarf I recognized from our teenage years. On that tablet was a folder named, In Case I Don't Make It. There were 3 voice recordings. The first one was for me. Ava, if you're hearing this then, I didn't make it and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to leave you like this. I always thought we'd grow old together, yelling at kids to keep off our lawns and laughing about how far we'd come. You were always my safe place. I wish I had listened to you when you told me not to do it again. But I was desperate. I thought maybe this time I'd win, that this would be the final sacrifice before things turned around. I was wrong. I'm so tired, Ava. So tired, but please tell my story. Please, make sure they know I existed beyond that contract. That I was a person, not just a womb for hire. I couldn't breathe after listening. I curled up in bed for hours, holding the scarf like it was her hand. The second recording was for the couple. I know you won't hear this, and maybe you don't care. But I want to say it anyway. I carried your children. I risked my life twice to give you a family. And I'm not asking for gratitude or flowers or recognition. I just wanted you to remember that I existed. That your children didn't appear out of thin air. They grew beneath my heart. I loved them even if I had to let them go. I hope one day you tell them where they came from. That a woman named Margaret gave them their start. And the last was for her father. That one was the hardest to hear. Papa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I promised you a house. I promised you a life where you didn't have to worry about anything anymore. And I failed. I tried, Papa. I really did. I thought if I did this one last thing, it would fix everything. I thought I could finally buy that land. Build the porch, plant the flowers you like. But I ran out of time. I'm sorry I didn't come home. I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye in person. Please forgive me, and please. Live, don't carry my guilt. Tell them I loved you more than anything in this world. When I delivered the tablet to her father, he didn't say a word, he just pressed it to his chest, closed his eyes and sobbed deep. Ragged sobs that shook the walls. He sat on that same rickety front step the next morning, the one she swore she'd replace with a white-railed porch. He was silent, staring at the spot in the yard where she once planted marigolds. Do you think they'll tell the children about her? He asked me. I don't know, I said honestly. I hope they do, he whispered. I hope they say her name every once in a while. Margaret, say her name. And so I did. I told everyone. I wrote to newspapers, I started a blog. I shared her recordings with permission. And people started listening. Women started writing in, some who had been surrogates themselves, some who were considering it, some who had never understood the other side. I didn't want pity, I wanted change. Because Margaret didn't die from childbirth alone. She died from being forgotten, from carrying the weight of two families while hers fell apart, from being seen as a service, not a soul. I still visit her grave every month. I bring sunflowers and lemon muffins. She used to say lemon was the most honest flavor, sweet but sharp, just like life. Sometimes I sit there and read to her. Sometimes I just cry. And sometimes I talk to her. I tell her the porch is coming. Because one day, I'll build it for her father. White rails, yellow flowers, her name carved into the wood. Margaret's porch. Because even though she never got to live in that house, she built everything else. My name is Ava. And this is the unfinished, unfiltered, undeniable story of my best friend. Margaret, she wasn't a contract. She wasn't a line in a file. She was light. She was sacrifice. She was love. She was everything.